Nobody expected Family Guy to age like this. It was supposed to be a dumb, reckless cartoon that said the craziest thing and moved on. But years later, some of those jokes don't feel like jokes anymore. They've shown up in real life. Politics turning into a battle for attention. Power getting pulled into fewer hands. Devices that seem to know a little too much. And once you start lining those moments up, it stops feeling random and starts feeling like the show saw the chaos in our world coming long before anyone else did. Number 10. The Jenner Bombshell. Back on May 3, 2009, Family Guy dropped a joke that looked like one more Wild Stewie line and nothing more. In We Love You, Conrad, Brian says Bruce Jenner is a man, and Stewie fires back that the press has it wrong, then calls Jenner an elegant, beautiful Dutch woman.
Bruce Jenner is a man.
That's what the press would have you believe. Bruce Jenner is a woman. An elegant, beautiful Dutch woman.
At the time, it felt like classic Family Guy. Rude, random, quick, and easy to forget. Bruce Jenner was still known to most people as an Olympic legend, a reality TV father, and a familiar face in the Kardashian world. So the line did not feel like a forecast. It felt like the show just being reckless for a laugh. That is exactly why it lands so hard now. It sat there in plain sight for years, and almost nobody treated it like anything important. The show did not leave it there either.
Lauren, we got a rough cut of next week's episode. Can you cue that up, Terry?
Sure.
In the September 25, 2011 episode Lottery Fever, Family Guy took another swing with a Bruce Jenner gag during one of its cutaways.
Oh my God, Peter, there are thousands of lottery tickets here. Where did you get the money for all these?
So when real life changed in a major way a few years later, people had more than one old clip to dig up. On April 24, 2015, Jenner sat down with Diane Sawyer and said, "For all intents and purposes, I am a woman." The interview became one of the biggest TV events of that year, drawing 17.1 million viewers.
Are you a woman?
Yes, for all intents and purposes, I am a woman.
Then on June 1, the Vanity Fair cover arrived with the words, "Call me Caitlin," and the story exploded across the world. That is when the old Family Guy clips came back from the dead. Suddenly, a joke that once felt random looked weirdly sharp. What made it hit so hard was how direct it was. This was not some loose joke about celebrity weirdness. The show had tied Bruce Jenner to womanhood very clearly, years before Caitlyn Jenner became one of the biggest public stories in America. And Family Guy knew people noticed. In the January 6, 2019 episode Hefty Shades of Grey, Stewie brings the joke up again and reminds Brian of what he said back in 2009.
Hey, I've been right about these things before. Remember what I said in 2009?
The show was basically pointing at its own old line and saying, yeah, that aged in a way nobody could ignore. Number 9. Disney Eats Fox. In Season 18, Episode 4, Disney's The Reboot, which aired on October 20, 2019.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Vaughn Giner, and I'm Vice President of Creative Bankruptcy for the Fox TV network.
Family Guy leaned straight into the madness. The whole setup is built around one idea. Fox is now owned by Disney, and that means Family Guy itself is stuck inside a giant brand machine. In the episode, network people tell the cast the show is ready for a reboot because Fox is now under Disney. One line even pushes the joke further, saying Fox is now owned by Disney, which will someday be owned by Netflix, which will someday be owned by Hub.
And since Fox is now owned by Disney, which will someday be owned by Netflix, which will someday be owned by Hub.
It sounds ridiculous, but that is exactly why it hits. The show is laughing at a world where huge companies keep swallowing everything until entertainment starts feeling less creative and more like a pile of assets being passed around. Then the show doubled down. In Season 18, Episode 7, Heartburn, which aired on November 17, 2019, Peter drops one of the sharpest lines in the whole Disney era. He says that now that they are owned by Disney, they can have Hercules in the episode. Then he gets told no. So he asks what the point of the whole merger was. Then he gets offered Launchpad McQuack instead and sounds completely defeated.
And now that we're owned by Disney, we can have Hercules here. No? They won't let us use him?
It is a fast joke, but it says a lot. Even after a giant takeover, the people inside the machine still do not control the machine. The company may own more characters, more shows, and more history than ever, but everything is still locked behind rules, brands, and permission. And the real deal was massive. Disney's takeover of 21st Century Fox became effective on March 20, 2019. The price was about $71 billion. Disney did not just grab a few movies. It took in major film and television assets, including the 20th Century Fox Studios, FX, a large stake in National Geographic, Star India, and Fox's Hulu stake. At the same time, some big pieces were split off into the new Fox Corporation, including the Fox Broadcast Network, Fox News, Fox Business, and Fox Sports assets. Family Guy was not just making a random Disney joke. It was locking into something much bigger. The feeling that a few giant companies were getting so large they could shape what people watch, what gets made, and what survives. Once that happens, culture starts to feel less wild and more managed. Number 8. The House Hears All. In 2018, Family Guy aired an episode called Switch the Flip, and buried inside all the chaos was a joke that feels a lot less funny now. Peter buys a virtual assistant named Brandy.
Hey, guys, look what I got. It's a magic genie speaker that plays music, talks, and knows stuff, all without wires.
And before long, Brian is treating that thing like it is more than a machine. That was the joke on the surface, but under it was something much more real.
I like you, Brandy.
I like you too.
The show was already playing with the idea that people would let a voice-powered device sit inside the home, talk back to them, guide their choices, and slowly become part of everyday life. Brandy was basically Family Guy's version of Alexa or Echo, years before smart assistants started feeling completely normal in millions of homes. Then the show pushed that idea even further. In Adam West High, which aired in 2019, Brian learns that the woman speaking through an OnStar-style system has been listening to private conversations inside cars just because she is bored. She even says there is nothing to do, so she just listens in and sometimes hears people having sex. That joke gets right to the fear people now live with every day. Once a device has a microphone, once it sits in your car or your house, once it is always there, the line between helpful and creepy gets very thin. By 2021, Family Guy was not even treating this like a fear anymore. In Customer of the Week, Lois talks to Alexa like a friend. She asks for the news, jokes around with it, and then casually says, "You're my best friend."
Seriously? Okay, see you later, Alexa. You're my best friend.
That is what makes this one hit so hard. The show was not just joking that devices might hear us, it was joking that people would get emotionally attached to them too. And that part feels very real now, because smart assistants are no longer some weird tech toy sitting in a rich person's kitchen. They are everywhere. Amazon says more than 600 million Alexa-enabled devices have been bought around the world. Google said its assistant was already on more than 1 billion devices. These things moved into daily life fast. The privacy fear got real too. In January 2025, Apple agreed to pay $95 million to settle a lawsuit that said Siri had recorded private talks after being turned on by mistake. Apple denied doing anything wrong, but the case still showed how normal this fear had become. Number 7. Fame got broken. Long before people were building careers from live streams, reaction clips, and food videos, Family Guy was already making fun of the hunger behind all of it. Back in 2000, the show aired 15 minutes of shame, and that episode now feels way more important than it did at the time. Meg is tired of her family humiliating her.
You guys are ruining my life.
I'm sorry, honey. I know how you must feel.
So she goes on Diane Simmons' show to expose them. But instead of ruining them, the whole mess turns the Griffins into TV stars.
Welcome to Diane. Today's guest is tired of being embarrassed by her family, the Griffin family.
Their chaos becomes the product. Their embarrassment becomes the hook. And before long, they are starring in a reality show called The Real Live Griffins. That is the part that hits now. They do not become famous for talent. They become famous because they are a public disaster that people want to watch. That idea used to feel like a joke about trash TV. Now it feels like the blueprint for half the internet. Family Guy understood something early. Once attention becomes valuable, people do not need to be impressive to get it. They just need to be loud, messy, shocking, or impossible to ignore. In 15 minutes of shame, the family gets pulled deeper into fame because the cameras reward the worst parts of them. Meg, the person who started it, even gets pushed aside and replaced by a prettier version once the machine decides she is not useful enough anymore. That is brutally close to how online fame works now. The person matters less than the content they can be turned into. Then, almost 2 decades later, the show came back to the same idea in a much more modern form. In 2019, Family Guy aired Girl Interneted. This time, Meg is pushed into internet fame after a challenge at a streaming convention.
Rectangle body, fridge bod, untapped market. Go with that. Everybody hashtag FridgeBodMeg. You're welcome.
Her big online act is simple and ugly. She eats huge amounts of food on camera while people watch. The attention grows fast. The crowds get bigger. The money starts showing up, and then it turns dark. During a live appearance at Cream Queen, Meg collapses into a diabetic coma. That episode was not just mocking weird online trends. It was showing how the chase for views can turn a person into a product and keep pushing until something breaks. That joke feels even heavier now because this is no longer some strange corner of the internet. It is a real economy. Goldman Sachs estimated that the creator economy could grow from about $250 billion to $480 billion by 2027. That is a huge amount of money built around views, clicks, deals, followers, and people turning themselves into content. And the culture around it is everywhere. About 1 in 5 adults in the United States now regularly gets news from influencers on social media, and among people from 18 to 29, it rises to nearly 4 in 10. What makes these old Family Guy episodes feel so sharp now is that they saw the same ugly rule before a lot of people did. Fame was already changing. It was leaving movie stars and TV hosts behind and moving toward ordinary people willing to trade privacy, shame, health, and self-respect for attention. Number 6. Political chaos and media hype. Back in 2010, Family Guy aired an episode called Excellence in Broadcasting, and it now feels like an early warning about how politics and news were starting to turn into pure performance. The setup starts with Brian going after Rush Limbaugh because he hates everything he stands for. But then the episode flips the joke. Brian ends up reading Limbaugh's work, swinging hard in the other direction, and suddenly acting like a full-on convert. Before long, politics is not shown as a serious search for truth. It looks more like a costume people put on, a team people join, and a show people perform. That is what makes the episode hit now. It understood that political media was becoming less about facts and more about identity, branding, and who could sell the loudest version of the story. Even the big song in the episode, Republican Town, pushes that same idea. Politics is treated like a flashy world you step into, with its own rules, slogans, and applause lines. Years later, the show came back to that same mess in a way that felt even closer to the world people now live in. In the 2019 episode Trump Guy, Peter ends up working for Donald Trump after getting good at delivering fake news. The Griffins move to Washington, Peter becomes White House press secretary, and the whole story runs on one ugly idea. Once a person gets rewarded for saying whatever people want to hear, truth stops mattering very much. That is the part Family Guy nailed. It was not just joking about one politician. It was joking about a media world where spin beats honesty, outrage beats calm, and the craziest version of a story often wins. A week before that, Family Guy had even aired Hefty Shades of Grey, where Peter learns fake news from Tom Tucker and starts blaming crime on immigrants just to get attention. So by early 2019, the show was already saying the quiet part out loud. News was becoming something people could shape, twist, and weaponize if it got them power. What makes those episodes feel so sharp now is that the real world kept moving in that same direction. By 2025, trust in mass media in the United States had dropped to just 28%, the lowest level ever recorded. At the same time, more people were drifting away from old news outlets and getting information through social media, video, and online personalities instead. About 1 in 5 adults in the United States now regularly get news from influencers on social media, and among people from 18 to 29, it jumps to nearly 4 in 10. That is a huge shift. It means a lot of people are no longer getting the day's story from traditional anchors or newspapers. They are getting it from personalities, clips, hot takes, and feeds built to keep them watching. Number 5. Celebrity culture collapse. For a long time, celebrity culture looked untouchable. Stars were treated like royalty, fan bases acted like armies, and one good image could hide almost anything. Family Guy kept making fun of that world for years, but what makes those jokes feel different now is how close they came to the mess we are living in today. The show saw that modern fame was turning unstable. It was not just about being adored anymore. It was about being watched, judged, swarmed, and torn apart in public. One of the clearest examples came in the 2022 episode Get Stewie. Stewie becomes obsessed with a pop star named Mary Elizabeth Becca Ryan and gets pulled into her world like a real fan. Then one careless post blows everything up. He calls her his favorite pig, and her fan base, the Marionettes, turns on him instantly. What makes that joke work so well now is how real it feels. One bad line, one badly timed joke, one post taken the wrong way. And suddenly thousands of strangers act like they know you, hate you, and have to destroy you. In the episode, the backlash gets so wild that it spills into Stewie's real life and even ends with Rupert being ruined. That sounds insane, but the emotion behind it does not sound insane at all anymore. Then there is the episode The D in Apartment 23 from 2017, which may be one of the sharpest Family Guy warnings about cancel culture. Brian posts a racist joke before seeing Baywatch, and the damage is immediate. He deletes the tweet. He tries to explain it away. None of that matters. His life starts falling apart almost at once. Friends turn on him, people judge him, and the internet moves faster than he can. What once felt like over-the-top comedy now feels like a very normal public meltdown. The episode was even built around the same kind of real-life tweet disaster that had already shown how fast a dumb post could explode and cost someone their job. That shift feels even bigger now because fame is no longer locked inside Hollywood. It is tied to platforms, followers, and non-stop online attention. About 41% of U.S. adults have faced some form of online harassment. That is why these old Family Guy episodes land so hard today. The show understood that modern fame was becoming a trap. The audience could make you, the audience could break you, and sometimes they could do both on the same day. Number 4, the robot takeover. Back in 2015, Family Guy aired Guy Robot, and the joke looked simple at first. Brian bombs at a comedy club, steals Stewie's jokes from Twitter, and gets caught. Stewie gets furious, cuts him off, and builds a robot named Lyle to replace him. That is the part that matters. Lyle is not just a toy. He is built to be better. He listens, learns, and grows smarter over time. That is what makes the episode feel different now. The fear was not just that robots would show up. It was that they would be made to do what people do, only faster, better, and with less drama. Years ago, that felt like a silly cartoon way to punish Brian. Now it feels a lot closer to the real world, where people keep asking the same question in different ways. What happens when the machine can do enough of your job, your art, or your thinking that somebody decides they do not need you as much anymore? Family Guy came back to that same fear in 2019 with Brie Robot. This time, Brian is not worried about a machine replacing him in a friendship. He is worried about being forgotten. He starts thinking about his legacy, about what he will leave behind, and about whether anything he has done will matter once he is gone. So Stewie builds a robot version of Brian as a kind of living record. That twist makes the whole thing hit harder now, because it moves the fear from labor to identity. The robot is not just doing a task, it is copying a person. It shares Brian's voice, his habits, his tastes, and the things that make him feel like himself. And that is where this stops sounding like old sci-fi nonsense. The modern machine is not only built to lift boxes or run factory lines, it is being trained to write, speak, answer, organize, draw, and sound human enough that people start asking where the line even is anymore. Then in 2021, Terminator pushed the whole idea into full chaos. Stewie creates a robot to kill Lois. Everything goes wrong, and he and Brian end up jumping ahead to the year 2060, where robot versions of themselves are fighting in the future. The episode is wild, but buried inside it is the same warning the show kept circling for years. Once the machine starts acting on its own, once it can copy people, react to them, and keep going without them, control starts slipping fast. That is why these episodes feel sharper now. The robot does not need to be a metal monster from an action movie anymore. It can just be software sitting on a phone or a laptop doing more and more of the work people once thought only humans could do. And real life has moved frighteningly fast in that direction. By February 2025, OpenAI said its tools had passed 400 million weekly active users. The same year, the World Economic Forum said more than 1,000 major employers, representing over 14 million workers, expected technology to reshape jobs in a big way through the rest of the decade. About 40% said they expected to reduce staff where AI could automate tasks. Number 3. Owned by giants. Long before people started openly worrying that a handful of giant companies were getting too powerful, Family Guy was already making that fear look ridiculous and real at the same time. In Business Guy, which aired in 2009, Carter Pewterschmidt has a heart attack, falls into a coma, and suddenly Peter is running Pewterschmidt Industries. The moment Peter gets power, he fires the board, brings in his friends, and starts pumping out stupid products like Jeremy Irons cereal and Scream in a Box. That is what makes the episode work so well now. It shows that once a company gets huge enough, the machine can keep moving even when the people steering it are reckless, clueless, or flat-out ridiculous. It is funny because Peter is Peter, but under the joke is a real idea. Giant companies can shape a lot of lives, and sometimes the people at the top do not look nearly as serious or smart as the system wants us to believe. The show hit the same fear from a different angle in McStroke. Peter saves the manager of McBurgertown during a fire, gets rewarded with unlimited burgers, eats 30 of them, and suffers a stroke. That setup sounds insane, but it cuts right to the heart of something very real. The company is happy to flood him with the very thing that wrecks him, because giving him more is good for business. The joke is not just about fast food. It is about a giant company building a system where people keep consuming, keep coming back, and keep paying, even when it is clearly hurting them. That is why these episodes land so much harder now. In April 2025, a United States judge ruled that Google had illegally maintained monopolies in key online ad tech markets. It was the second major monopoly loss for Google, and it added even more pressure to a tech world where Amazon, Meta, and Apple were already facing heavy antitrust scrutiny too. At the same time, Amazon's grip on online shopping kept looking massive. One 2025 forecast said Amazon would account for 40.5% of all retail e-commerce sales in the United States. That is an enormous share for one company. It means that when people talk about giant corporations shaping daily life, they are not talking about a distant future anymore. They are talking about right now. That is what Family Guy kept seeing early. It was not just joking that big companies were greedy, it was joking that they were becoming so large, so present, and so woven into normal life that they started to feel like systems people lived inside. One company controls the ads, another controls what people buy, another controls what shows people watch, what packages show up at the door, or what cloud the internet runs on. Number 2. The crazy became normal. Some of the smartest Family Guy calls were not the ones that looked huge right away. They were the weird little jokes that felt too dumb, too online, or too far gone to ever matter in real life, and then real life slowly walked straight into them. In 2018, HTT Pete made fun of the kind of internet world that still felt irritating and fake to a lot of people. Peter gets pushed into millennial culture at the brewery, starts vaping, starts chasing social media attention, and begins acting like a full-time online brand instead of a person. He and the guys try to make viral content, and before long, a Silicon Valley boss is paying attention. At the time, that felt like a joke about annoying trends. Now it feels like a clean early picture of how normal life got swallowed by content, startup talk, personal branding, and the need to always be visible online. The same thing happened with delivery tech. In Take a Letter, which aired in 2016, Cleveland is out doing regular mail work when a talking Amazon drone flies over and mocks him for delivering by foot. It is a fast joke, but it now lands very differently. Back then, it sounded like one more throwaway Family Guy bit about a giant company doing something absurd. But drone delivery is not some silly cartoon idea anymore. Amazon now offers drone delivery for eligible orders, and the company says items can be delivered that way if they weigh 5 pounds or less. That matters because it shows how quickly the strange became normal. Then there is Scammed Yankees, also from 2016, where Peter and Carter fall for a Nigerian prince email scam and go all the way to Africa to get their money back. For years, that kind of scam joke felt old and almost harmless, like one of those cheesy internet stories everyone thought they were too smart to fall for. But the real world got much worse. In 2024 alone, the FBI logged 859,532 internet crime complaints with reported losses of $16.6 billion. The Federal Trade Commission also said people reported losing more than $12.5 billion to fraud in that same year. So what once looked like a goofy email joke now sits inside a world of non-stop online fraud, fake jobs, fake romance, fake investments, fake tech support, and people losing life-changing amounts of money through a screen. An app a day hit another part of the same problem. Peter gets pulled into phone apps, and Chris ends up in serious trouble after taking bad advice and sending a private picture to a girl. The details are messy, but the point is simple. One phone can wreck a life fast. That is what makes the episode feel so current. Apps were once sold as fun little tools, but they turned into the doorway to almost everything. Dating, money, social life, shopping, status, scams, shame, and mistakes that never fully go away. That is why this cluster of old Family Guy jokes feels stronger now than it did when it first aired. The show kept laughing at a digital world that looked noisy, stupid, and over the top. The real twist is that the noisy, stupid, over-the-top world stopped being a sideshow and became everyday life. Number 1. Why they keep hitting. After all of this, one question is hard to ignore. Did Family Guy really predict the future, or was it doing something else the whole time? The best answer is also the simplest one. The show kept looking right because it understood where people, media, and culture were already heading. It took real habits, real fears, and real trends, then pushed them a little farther and made them funny before the rest of the world fully caught up. That idea shows up clearly in the 2016 episode Inside Family Guy. The whole episode turns the show back on itself. Peter gets fired, replacement ideas get tossed around, and the audience is shown how fake, messy, and manufactured the whole machine really is. That matters because it makes Family Guy feel less like a random cartoon and more like a factory built to chew through whatever is happening in the culture around it. It watches fame, politics, tech, media, and public behavior, then turns all of it into jokes people remember. The show even said this out loud years earlier. In the Family Guy 100th episode special, Seth MacFarlane explained that the reason the show uses so many pop culture references is because Family Guy likes to hold a mirror up to society and point at the ugly parts. That is the real explanation. The show was never magic. It was paying attention. And when a comedy keeps paying attention to the same weak spots in society year after year, it starts to look almost psychic when those weak spots finally crack open in real life. That is also why the show has lasted so long. MacFarlane has said the main goal is still to make people laugh, not to act important. But that is exactly why the best Family Guy predictions hit so hard. The writers were not trying to be prophets. They were just good at spotting what was already getting weirder, uglier, louder, and more extreme. Thanks for watching. Now check out the videos popping up on screen for more unbelievable stories.